Matt Preem, Eric Scopel, if you did not know, of 24/7 Sports, Save Sweatshirts. We planned that one well. Oregon just wrapped up their first practice of spring football, one of 5 before the team goes on like about a 2.5-week break for finals, spring break, and the whatnot. And they weren't in full pads, but today was kind of an important day because it was the first time out since the Rose Bowl, and Cristobal talked about how the culture, setting the culture of making sure that the program is going in the right direction, not reading Twitter and reading all the stories, popping them up. And then on top of that, it's also about starting to replace some key pieces to this football team. And I think we should start right away with the center position for this Oregon football team. Jake Hansen's gone, 4-year starter for the Ducks, all-conference player. He's going to find his way in some capacity on an NFL roster in about 3 months when the NFL draft is completed and training camp starts. But from there, Oregon has to figure out who is the starting center, who is the backup center. And there's a lot of options right now at that position.
And I think maybe the most interesting thing is when we watch practice today, the guy who is probably the first team center according to Cristobal was sick.
Yeah.
Ryan Walk, who's been kind of the backup guy, a walk-on from Shelton High School, Eugene guy, was not available today because of an illness, and so he was not at practice today. So he was not the first team center, which means we're kind of starting off here on a misnomer a little bit, but Alex Forsyth got first team reps. Jonathan Dennis, a true freshman, also working some with the center, so that's going to be a position that I think continues to unfold. And I think the fact that Walk wasn't here means we're kind of like not exactly sure what's going to happen there, but it's notable that he
Cristobal mentioned he would be the starter if he was. One notable thing about Ryan Walk is he spent basically the entire year this past season in 2019 as the listed backup to Jake Hansen. Guy, like you said, from Shelton High School, originally walked on. I'm not quite sure if he's a scholarship player or if he's still a walk-on. We should figure that out.
Something to figure out.
But notably is the second string guy was Jonathan Dennis, a true freshman, 4-star lineman from Florida who enrolled early at Oregon. I think everyone was kind of, myself included, expecting TJ Bass to be maybe the second guy if it wasn't, if Forsyth was the starter or if Ryan Walk was the starter. I think a lot of people, myself included, were maybe thinking TJ Bass would be the second guy. He was a top prospect at junior college level at that position. He's the left guard. Jonathan Dennis, a true freshman, is at the center position, second string as of first practice, day 1 of spring ball. But Cristobal also did note that all of those guys are basically going to rotate in between center positions.
There's a 4 to 5 man rotation at center right now, and there's a lot of time for that to play out.
One other interesting note from a positional standpoint was what happens with Thomas Graham. Oregon has had him as the starting cornerback since he arrived as a true freshman back in the 2017 season, and he's been Oregon's most consistent player at that spot. Today, it's just day 1 of spring football, and this is the time when you experiment, and they're experimenting with where Thomas Graham plays, because during spring ball, practice number 1, he wasn't at the cornerback spot.
Yeah, he was working a little with the safeties and the nickels, like he was with the second team at nickel. Cristobal said afterwards that they're just going to kind of mix and match, move some stuff around. They have so much talent back there that they kind of are forced to try to find ways to get players roles and stuff. And we should know that Mikael Wright slid into the first team corner spot.
He's pretty good.
Opposite of De'Ambre Lenoir. Yeah, he's pretty good. So he kind of is the wild card. I think that makes this a thing where they're going to have to rotate a lot. So that'll be something to keep an eye on, and it'd be interesting to see with where does he line up from practice to practice? Is he going to be exclusively moving around, or is he going to move back to corner soon? I think Cristobal said that'll be something that they'll continue to toy with. That is notable. One other position change, Andrew Faliu.
Well, real quick about Thomas Graham. Real quick, Cristobal did note that part of the reasoning for the experimentation with Graham at nickel and the safety spot is because of the offenses that they play.
True.
And the variations of those that they face. He mentioned the air raid at Washington State, the air raid at Arizona, at USC, the spread that we've seen at ASU in Arizona, UCLA, and so the pro style at Stanford, all the variations of offenses that they face, they've got to be prepared for everything. And so he noted that that's another reason why Oregon is experimenting with some of their corners at other spots, is getting your best cover guys out there possible.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to mix and match probably personnel groups. I'm sure we'll see them experimenting throughout practice, so I don't think we can say it's clear that that's the position he's playing.
Another position change defensively is moving freshman, or I should say now sophomore, redshirt freshman, Andrew Folio.
No, he's a sophomore.
Yeah, I got that wrong.
It's okay.
Sophomore, defensive lineman Andrew Folio has now moved to an outside linebacker position instead of where he came in at defensive tackle. Cristobal kind of explained that, and makes a lot of sense of why.
Yeah, they're just trying to find a role for him. He's somebody that they really like. They think the potential is there. He's lost 10 pounds down to 265, so he's a little larger for an outside linebacker, but they're also still just trying to find bodies at that outside linebacker spot. You have to remember Bryson Young has graduated, Lamar Winston has graduated. Those were the team's top 2 outside linebackers last year. Mace Funa feels like the logical choice at that one of those spots, but they need some bodies, and I think he's somebody that'll fit in there. So I think somebody to kind of monitor, see how he develops there. I think he's somebody who has potential, but it might take a little time for him to kind of.
I think it also speaks to the talent that they have
on the
defensive line.
Sure.
Because a guy like Brandon Dorlus is going to explode, I think, as a sophomore this year for Oregon.
One of 4 guys, by the way, who was sick today.
Yes. But there's a lot of optimism that Dorlus is going to be a guy, a dude, and then obviously we know about Kayvon, we know about Andrew's brother, Austin Folio, who's a senior, and then the other, they've got 3 or 4 other guys along the defensive line that are young as well, that are more strictly defensive linemen. They don't have the body types to move around positions, and maybe we see Andrew drop some weight, and that increases his agility, and that increases his athleticism and speed, and maybe the outside linebacker spot fits better for him. Now, we've also got some tight end news. I think this is one of the more interesting ones to watch from just day 1 of spring ball to day 15, which is the spring game on April 18th, and just the overall growth, because there's a lot of new faces, a lot of new roles going to have to be figured out, and one of those guys is going to be DJ Johnson.
Yeah.
He was a 4-star defensive end coming out of high school, out of the Sacramento area, went to Miami, and then transferred, and this past season was his first year eligible as a sophomore defensive end, and didn't necessarily struggle to play, but at the same time, his role and his availability to play was limited because of the guys above him.
Right.
And because of the depth at tight end, Oregon felt like maybe let's try him out at tight end, see if he can help here. Maybe we add a piece here that can help. His development at tight end, I think, if you look at it from a short-term perspective, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, you're probably going to think this isn't going to work. But the growth that he could make over 15 practices could be pretty significant. He's got the body type to be a dude at the tight end position. It's now, can he just turn that raw potential into production?
He switched numbers from number 7, where he was last year on defense, to 89 as a tight end. I think from a pure physical perspective, we didn't watch him do much of anything else besides run in a straight line and run routes. He certainly passes the eye test. You watch him move around, and he's one of the more impressive players from that position group. It is going to be kind of, what else can he do? How is he as a blocker? If he can be, translate that physicality, that tenacity that you need as a defensive player onto the offensive side as a blocker, that could be a big win. We saw them kind of do that with Hunter Kampmeyer before.
We'll end this with some freshmen that have arrived on campus, most notably Noah Sewell, 5-star inside linebacker. We did get clarification today.
He's an inside linebacker.
That he is an inside linebacker, but the one caveat here is he did suffer a minor, we'll call it minor injury, in the Hawaii Polynesian Bowl this past winter, and his availability, or his full availability, is going to be limited for early part of practice.
Yeah, Cristobal said, and he kind of hesitated to say this, but said we're just shooting for the second 10 practices. Yeah. So it's probably a pretty good chance. We should say he was dressed.
Yep.
He was moving around, but he was pretty limited. He did some agility stuff. He was pretty limited today. Cristobal seemed to indicate that when they come back on March 31st for the second part of practice, he would be available then.
One item of note, we didn't get to see a ton of him practicing, but from an eyeball test, he's one of the most impressive freshmen that you've seen in a very, very long time, just because of his sheer size and the ability he has. So watch that second half of spring football, what impact he could make now. For Eric Skopil, myself, Matt Brand, thanks for watching. We'll continue to do these throughout all of spring football. You can read our full coverage on duckterritory.com. We'll talk to you soon.